fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
Several shots were fired as President Kennedy's motorcade passed through downtown Dallas.
None of us will ever forget this day. Yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Welcome to the Hagmann Daily Show, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And now your hosts, Joe Hagmann and Jon Robberson.
Hello and welcome to this Tuesday, May 29th, 2018 edition of the Hagmann Daily Show. So glad to be here today. We got a lot to get into coming off a 3-day holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend and got to get some rest, spend time with their family, do some barbecuing. I know me myself, I pretty much stayed home and I grilled. I got some gardening done. I tilled out part of my backyard and planted some potatoes, some tomatoes, strawberries, and got a lot done. So all in all, it was a good weekend, and this is my favorite time of year as we see the spring turning into summer, the flowers blooming, the leaves are all on the trees, and you can start to plant your gardens and whatnot. Can't beat this time of year. And last night I spent a few hours outside watching the night sky, which led me to write a few more pages of a book I'm working on. It's coming together at the very infant stages, but I have some direction.
Joe, it sounds like you took 3 days off and you're getting all monastic on us. You're like, I stayed at home, I viewed the sky, I ate plain white rice and contemplated. Look, let's tell people what really happened. Your dad has had you over at his house busting your hump doing yard work the last 3 or 4 days. Let's get into that.
Not only that, I was there this morning for a few hours. I was there Saturday for a few hours. I also helped a friend for a few hours who he bought a house at auction, and I was helping him do some construction. I got a lot done this weekend. I did a lot of stuff for my dad, did some stuff for a buddy, did some stuff for myself. So it was a very, very productive weekend.
Well, what exactly, yard work can vacillate anywhere from rake the leaves and put them in a bag to let's chunk up this flagstone and go throw it in the back of a 40-yarder. How hard on that scale was the work you did with Doug?
Well, what we did is we planted a bunch of plants on Saturday, dug some holes, spread some mulch, moved some things around, some of those concrete blocks in the backyard. Spent a good 4 or 5 hours over there doing work. And then today I installed an exterior light and put up an archway out of the side door. You'll see it later today, John, but it's, work that needed to be done, all kinds of stuff.
Some quality in the yard work time with Dad. I even still have those with my dad. When I travel to San Jose, California, where he lives, if I'm there for more than, if I'm there for 2 days, it's typically like we'll go get some lunch and go to a movie one day. Maybe we'll go see the Giants if it's baseball season. But if I'm there, Joe, for more than about 48 hours, vacation time's over, and then it becomes a staycation. And my dad it's funny because we'll be sitting there at the breakfast table and, I'll be sipping my coffee and here's something I got to tell you about coffee at Dad's. Neither one of them, my stepmom and dad, they don't drink coffee. So I get to choose my cup from a variety of single serving packs from every hotel chain across the country. So nice. I'll brew up a cup and we'll be sitting there at the dining room table and my dad will say something like, the pergola out back is kind of, I don't know, it seems like it's kind of not really level. Can you take a look at it, John? Let's go out after breakfast and we'll just take a look. And that's a code for better hope you brought some clothes you don't mind getting dirty in. There's definitely a trip to the hardware store in the mix. And then, of course, there's that democracy between son and father where I have more finely tuned building craft than my dad does, but my dad is still my dad. So we'll talk things through as we do it. Are you sure you want to put that there? Yeah, Dad, I'm pretty sure we want to put this here.
Well, all in all, very productive, very, very good weekend. And I got to say, the reason I brought up the watching the night sky, the stars last night, is I've always been fascinated with the night sky, with the stars, with the whole universe, and I've always observed it. I have a telescope and whatnot, and I've spent thousands of hours, doing this, and I get a lot from watching what happens in the sky. But I was able to do some writing last night, as I said, after a few hours out there. And, one thing that I walked away with is that there is the night sky and the deep ocean are exactly the same. Both are teeming with life and activity, and almost all of it is unknown to most men. And it's fascinating to see, all this stuff that's going on in the sky. There is no time. I mean, anytime I go outside and I spend at least an hour in a clear sky, I see something that, what do you call a UFO? Something unexplainable. Is it space junk? Is it, man-made technology? Is it alien UFOs or what I would classify as demons? There are things happening in the sky. And we have lost touch with, as a society, with that connection to the universe. I mean, this is the stars, the night sky was something over 150 years ago. And for all of human history, that just about every person who was alive was aware of and familiar with. But we've lost that connection in our modern world. And it's unfortunate because there are so many things happening, and there are celestial signs, and we're told about signs in the end times, what will happen, and the deceptions that will be brought about in these times, and how they will come from the sky. But anyway, doing this research and writing last night led me to a page that I sent to you, John, and I learned about a day in 1780 that happened in New England, in America, the dark day. The sun didn't come up on May 19th, 1780. A dark day occurred in New England in America. The dark day covered the New England states and parts of Canada. The darkness was observed as far north as Portland, Maine, and extended south to New Jersey. And the daytime darkness was so complete that candles were required from noontime until that day, until the middle of the next night. 3 centuries ago, in parts of North America, a strange event turned morning into night. It remains a mystery. So what caused the dark day? The dark day, as it has become known, took place May 19, 1780 in New England, and they still don't understand what happened. Scientists today still can't put their finger on it, but apparently the sun did not come out and for a whole 24 hours. And then when the sun did come back out, the moon the next day was blood red. And these people had I'm going to read to you some of the writings of what people who observed these events said. The 19th of May, 1780 was a remarkable dark day. Candles were lighted in many houses. Birds were silent and disappeared. The fowls retired to roost. A very general opinion prevailed that the day of judgment was at hand. That is from the Connecticut Historical Collections. Also, this one. 'Twas on a May day of the far old year 1780. There fell over the bloom and sweet life of the spring, over the fresh earth and of the heaven of noon, a horror of great darkness. Men prayed and women wept. All ears grew sharp to hear the doom blast of the trumpet shatter the black sky. Very interesting. And then on the moon they say, the sense that a decisive moment was afoot would have been bolstered by the fact that during the preceding days the sun and moon glowed red. The moon, which was at its full, had the appearance of blood. Very interesting. Never heard about that before.
No, it is, Joe, and it makes one wonder. Now we know, I've got the Blue Letter Bible up right now, and we know during the reign of King Hezekiah that Hezekiah beseeched the Lord God Almighty, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for a sign to confirm the things that Isaiah was prophesying. So again, I think most of our listeners are familiar with Blue Letter Bible, but it's a great source to look into things, especially things like this, because obviously, Joe, I've got the article up in front of me as well. And by the way, for our listeners who want to read the article, and I suggest you do because it's full of scripture and interesting commentary, go to signsofendtimes.com, and you need to put hyphens in between. So it's signs-of-end-times.com, and you'll find that story. But let's look over here at what happened in biblical times. It says, during the reign of King Hezekiah, he asked for a confirmatory sign from the prophet Isaiah to verify that all Isaiah had predicted was true. We have the following account. And Hezekiah said to Isaiah, what is the sign that the Lord will heal me, and that I shall go up to the house of the Lord the third day? Then Isaiah said, this is the sign to you from the Lord, that the Lord will do the thing which he has spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 degrees or go backward 10 degrees? Now, I'll add parenthetically that the timepiece of the day was the sundial, and that's what they're referring to. And Hezekiah answered, it is an easy thing for the shadow to go down 10 degrees, but no, let the shadow go backward 10 degrees. So Isaiah the prophet cried out to the Lord, and he, the Lord, brought, forgive me, listeners, I don't know what it is. No. As soon as we start broadcasting, I start getting calls and texts like one after another. It's so annoying.
I know. I get the people who come into my door. Seems like, at least once a month.
It's just so it's so frustrating. Anyway, back to the story. So Isaiah cries out to the Lord, and God brought the shadow 10 degrees backward, by which it had gone down on the sundial of Ahaz. Now that's in 2 Kings chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. And this is the sign to you from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing which he has spoken. Behold, I will bring the shadow on the sundial, which has gone down with the sun, on the sundial of Ahaz. I believe that's the location of the sundial, 10 degrees backwards. So the sun returned 10 degrees on the dial by which it had gone down. This is literally saying that the Lord moved the sun across the sky the other direction, thus interrupting the 24-hour cycle by a full 10 minutes. So, Joe, here's an interesting question. Could it be that on this date, and I've got the article in front of me, but tell me what the date was again?
It's May 19th, 1780.
Okay, so is it possible that the world witnessed a Isaiah Hezekiah meeting, but unbeknownst to us? Perhaps there were two men. Maybe they were in an English monastery. Maybe they were in a French cave. Maybe they were over in the Middle East somewhere. And there was and one asked for a confirmation from God. You see, what I'm getting at, Joe, is people make I believe, the terrible mistake of believing that miracles ended on the last page of Revelation. And we know that to just not be true. I look at my own personal life and I know that to not be true. Miracles happen every day, but we've become so disconnected that we don't recognize them as such. You dodge a car accident, and what do you say? Whoa, man, we got lucky. No, you didn't. You were saved. There isn't even such thing as luck.
Right.
Joe, you made a comment a moment ago, and it's something that really got my mind gears spinning here. We've lost touch. We've lost touch. We don't harvest our own food. We don't kill our own game. We don't source our own water. We don't build our own dwellings. We don't till the fields. We barely talk to one another. We do everything through this binary code of zeros and ones that as time progresses, it would appear the devil owns.
And John, this is exactly what I was writing about, and I'm not going to read what I wrote because that'll defeat the purpose. But you're absolutely right. The technological, ever since the Industrial Revolution, we have changed the way we live as a society. And as you said, the way we live now is a lifestyle of convenience. But if society breaks down, 3 days, we have 3 days of food on the shelves of the stores. After those 3 days, no more resources. We have to survive off what we can produce. And how is a city full of 500,000 to 8 million people with no resources supposed to self-sustain? This is the curse of the modern world. Everything that we see with technology and the rise of the machinery and whatnot. Yes, it is very convenient. It produced the biggest boom in human history, technology-wise. But that also has a negative side. And we see that in a number of different ways. The isolation, John. People are not a community anymore, as you said. We have become... We rely upon institutions and other people to produce our food. It's a very dangerous situation if things go bad.
Sorry, Joe, slow on the uptake there, but only because I'm really into where this discussion is headed. First of all, consider the cities. And we talked about this a little bit a week or two ago. I recently watched a really fun series on YouTube Red. And all it was a bunch of famous YouTubers. One of the guys from the Jackass movies, a big time gamer. All these people have at least 10 million YouTube followers or more. So what they did was they got about 8 or 10 of them together from all different walks of life. Chuck Liddell, the big UFC guy from back in the day, he's one of them. He actually turned out to be a really nice guy and one of the more interesting characters in this. And they took all these people, Joe, to Peru, to summit a mountain that's not quite trying to do Everest. It's like Everest light. To summit Everest, you've got to be into mountaineering 24/7, 365. So they chose a peak, 20,000 plus foot peak in Peru that the average person could get up with some training and with maybe say 8 to 10 weeks of boot camp. And that's what this whole series was about. It was actually a really fun series. It almost made me homesick for LA a little bit because these people, the contestants, are so LA. But one of the things they do consistently in that is they check their heart rates and they check their oxygen absorption rate. Okay, so they put a little thing on the tip of your finger to tell you how much oxygen your bloodstream is absorbing. And we know that without that oxygen, your blood basically dies. So what makes oxygen? Well, we know that vegetation is this amazing, simple formula converting carbon dioxide back to oxygen. Trees do it, shrubs do it, plants, grass, all do it. Cities, if you look at a city out the window of an airplane, yes, there's little trees planted in a little 2-foot dirt patch here and there to try to add some beauty to the average street. But typically speaking, when you look at a city in total, it looks kind of like a concrete version of a circuit board out of a computer is what a city looks like. It's just a big fat grid covered in concrete, asphalt, and glass. And that's what it is. So the people who live on those grids of concrete, asphalt, and glass, they don't even have the same oxygen absorption rate that, say, a man running a small ranch in Arkansas does. I'm not talking about some big gone with the wind type thing. I'm talking about a ranchette with 100 acres and 100 head of cattle. But that person is out absorbing the oxygen into their bloodstream every day. And so this idea that, quote unquote, they are closer to the land is very true. And of course, we can extrapolate that, Joe. It's no wonder that the average rancher, the average farmer, even the average lumberman or people participating in the fishery, up where I just came from, the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, you've got ranching, farming, lumber, and fishery. Those are the 4 main things that drive that economy up there. And all 4 of those types of people, they still live the old ways to a degree. Yeah, they've got Netflix, but they also can blackberry jam when the blackberries come out each year, and they've got a couple 100 jars of preserves in the garage, and they've got deer rifles, and they do archery as a hobby, and they know. I mean, how many people listening to our broadcast today would actually know how to turn a 100-pound halibut into something that you can properly put on a plate and eat? I mean, have you ever seen a 100-pound halibut? First of all, they're dangerous. They flop around like crazy. They can break your arm with one blow. But, butchering a halibut is not something you just get out a knife and kind of figure out as you go. So again, Joe, I'm very inspired by this conversation, but we've lost touch, brother.
Yeah, we have, and we're going to have to, either willingly or the hard way, regain that connection with, nature, with our universe. And then this is something I was going to write about further, but it's really sad when you, on every fall, when Venus is very low in the evening at dusk in the western sky. Internet forums and message boards get filled up with people who say it's Planet X and it's this and that. But every year it's the same thing. It's just bright Venus in the west sky. This is what I'm talking about. I mean, 100 years ago, this would have never happened. You would not have, these people all running around wondering what Venus, because they would know. They would see it every day. They would know what stars are in what areas of the sky in what time of the year. But we don't have that today. So we have this insanity, this ignorance, and it is very unfortunate. But, John, I want to switch gears here. Something we did not talk about before the show.
Oh, man, I don't want to switch gears, but, go ahead.
Tommy Robinson.
Oh, Tommy Robinson. Okay, we've got to switch gears. Hashtag free Tommy. Yeah, we've got to switch gears. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so he's been arrested and jailed for 13 months for being held for breaking contempt of court. Now, this is what I don't understand. Okay, he was reporting outside of a courthouse last week on a case where I think it was people who raped children. And somehow
it's called grooming. It is permissible under Sharia law because Muhammad's youngest wife was purportedly 9 years old, and this is by Western legal definition, Joe. This is pedophilia, and it is being an accessory to pedophilia. That's what it is by our codes and laws. But by Sharia law, they call it grooming, and it's grooming an underage female for an underage marriage, both of which are illegal, again, by English common law and what today is American jurisprudence.
Okay. So this is what I don't understand. He was outside the courthouse. He was making a video, streaming information about this case. Now, apparently the government says this. It says Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Lennon, was listed on court documents, admitted committing contempt of court by publishing information that could prejudice a sensitive ongoing trial. The court heard it could cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of pounds if a retrial has to be held. Apparently jailing Robinson today, the judge said the integrity of the case had to be upheld. Nothing may occur which will prejudice the trial. I don't understand this, John. What in the hell are they talking about? You can't comment on an ongoing or upcoming trial? How does this even make sense? I don't get it.
Well, during the Manson trial, there was an infamous moment where he had one of his followers flash that morning's paper at the jury. And because the jury is supposed to be sequestered and they're supposed to deal with the facts as presented, remember, in court, it's all about the evidence. So whatever's being written by mainstream media, whatever commentary is being made by Sean Hannity or Doug Hagmann or whomever, is not supposed to affect the jury whatsoever, in as much as in really big cases they sequester the jury, and you know this. So I think the law, and again, this is British law. So I in no way, shape, or form am I going to pretend to be a barrister and discuss British law in detail. But what they nailed him on apparently is he was outside the court while the trial concerning this grooming issue was underway, and he was doing a rant. I think he was streaming on Twitch or on Twitter or on one of these platforms, and he got himself in trouble. And of course he's been at the forefront of being what the powers that be would consider a malcontent, but he's also a hero.
Well, this is what I don't get. I don't understand how you can. I mean, he's basically a political prisoner at this point. That's government has bent over backwards to go out of their way to protect the religion of Islam and all these migrants at the expense and rights of their own citizens. When you can't go report on what these people are doing without going to jail, there's a civil war coming.
Yes, indeed. And I don't know that the Civil War will pop in England because, unfortunately, the Englishmen, who are every bit as gritty and virile and violent as American men, the problem is that their weapons were taken away from them, so they have nothing with which to fight. As you know, Joe, I study military history, and in both World War I and World War II, the Brits were a force to be reckoned with. You know, we're going to stay on Tommy Robinson, but here's just a 30-second aside from history. I don't think many people know this. Do you know that at the beginning of World War I, the British sent the British Expeditionary Force to France, 100,000 men strong. 100,000 men. We're talking about a time, Joe, where armies that were being measured by the millions are gathering in Germany, France, Russia, etc. The British send 100,000 professional soldiers, many of whom had trained and fought all over the British Empire. So they'd fought everything from, like the Zulu Nation to the Boxer Rebellion, the Boxer Rebellion came later, but they'd fought all over the world, is my point. These soldiers were so professional. They were men of such stamina and capable of such profound violence. They could lay down what was called the Mad Minute with a 1903 Enfield, which is a bolt-action rifle, and they could put 15 shots per minute on target with a bolt-action rifle, having to rack the bolt, eject the cartridge manually by so doing, and then punch a new one. And just basically, for those who don't know weapons, just think about a deer rifle, basically. And
Hey, John,
that's
not
how
to interrupt
professional
you.
these soldiers were. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of rustling or something. I don't know what that is.
I don't either. I'm not even moving around.
You hear that?
Huh. What a bummer.
You hear it?
Let's try something. It might be these headphones. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. It's those headphones.
The rustling.
No, it was the headphones. Definitely.
Okay, I apologize to our listeners. What that is that's a pair of aftermarket earbuds where the good mic that we use for the show does not supersede the stupid little inline mic, so it was rubbing against my shirt. I apologize. Quickly, we're going back to Tommy Robinson, but I want to make a point culturally. Granted, I'm struggling, but I'll get this out in the next 60 seconds. British Expeditionary Force, World War I, professionally trained soldiers, they literally held one division after another of German troops in Belgium. They held them at a 20, 30, 40 to 1 ratio because they were so well trained and they were fighters. Again, you look at World War II, Montgomery's 8th Army pushing the Desert Fox, Erwin Rommel, and the German Afrikorps all the way across North Africa, from Egypt to El Alamein. I mean, these guys know how to fight, and so we must never misjudge the British as just sort of like, oh, it's time for tea and everything's so proper. No, these guys fight. The problem is, in the 1980s, Joe, they were disarmed. And I'm very concerned with what we're seeing with Tommy Robinson. I was concerned a year and a half ago when we became friends with Tara McCarthy. And she used to come on the show. And I know that your dad and myself and yourself, we were concerned back then that she would say something that would – there were several broadcasts late 2016 on the Hagmann Report where I was concerned that Tara McCarthy, a.k.a. Reality Calls, that we were going to get notified a day or two after her broadcast that she had been locked up.
Well, the free speech, the hate speech laws in England are absolutely, in the UK, in Europe, are absolutely crazy. And see, I just don't understand how they could say that this is interfering or swaying people one way or the other. I just don't. Was it because he did this on his own sidewalk as opposed to in front of the courthouse? Would that have made a difference?
Yes, it would have, because here's the deal. They are using the law to silence Tommy Robinson because Tommy Robinson is stating he's kind of like a Martin Luther King Jr. type, or maybe perhaps a little more like Malcolm X, because Tommy Robinson is certainly no pacifist. But what he's doing, Joe, that is so dangerous to the political movement, the move to capitulation and the move to giving privilege and giving special rights to the Islamic migrants is incredibly unpopular with the average Englishman. And Tommy Robinson has risen to be one of the very prominent voices for all of that discontent among Englishmen. And, so we're talking 60, 70 million Englishmen. Tommy Robinson, I mean, consider this. We live on the other side of the Atlantic. And I, Jon Robberson, and you, Joe Hagmann, we both know who Tommy Robinson is. He's been very successful in trying to get the message out that the average Englishman is not okay with neighborhood by neighborhood being overrun with a cross culture that does not blend. Look, people can call me racist if they want, but I don't think there's a problem with saying, hey, we don't want people in burqas walking up and down the street. We find that disconcerting. That's not how we live here. It's 100 degrees outside. We don't want to see people looking like a rolled up walking rug. Right. Tommy Robinson's got that kind of moxie. And the other thing I want to mention about Tommy Robinson is people should go back on YouTube about 4 months ago and take a look at what happened when 9 guys tried to beat him up outside that McDonald's. We talked about it on the Hagmann Daily Show.
Yeah. And this is really unfortunate. There is a letter written by Gert Wilders, and he says, my statement in front of the British Embassy in The Hague today, free Tommy Robinson. And this is what he says, written questions by MP Wilders, Hagmann Daily Show, to the Foreign Minister of Affairs about the arrest of British activist and Islamic critic Tommy Robinson. 1. Have you heard about the arrest of the British activist and Islam critic Tommy Robinson for breaching the peace while he was covering a trial of Islamic rapists, and that was written a few hours, convicted to 13 months imprisonment? What do you think of this madness? 2, do you realize that if the said Islam critic has to spend his jail sentence between Islamic criminals, this may cost him his life? What is your opinion of this? 3, does, according to you, freedom of speech also apply to Islam critics in the EU? And are you willing to immediately voice your dissatisfaction about this violation of freedom of speech by the United Kingdom to your British colleague and demand his attention for the personal safety of the person involved? If not, why not? 4, do you and your colleagues in the EU realize that you cannot silence the dissatisfaction in society about the Islamization by prosecuting or arresting Islam critics, and that a large segment of the population will at a certain moment no longer accept this and turn against you and your colleagues? 5, can you answer these questions before Tuesday, May 29th? And this is, again, Gert Wilders, who is a politician, I believe.
Well, Gert Wilders is one of us. Gert Wilders, I believe, is part of the nationalist movement in Europe. I believe that he ran in the Netherlands about a year ago. He was sort of like he is in the same pantheon as a Nigel Farage, a Christine Lagarde. He's the opposite of a Macron or a Trudeau. He's not a globalist. He's not an initiate. Gert Wilders is a good man, at least as far as I can tell, having not studied his life in detail. But let's take a quick look, Joe. Now, granted, this is the Sun. It's probably my least favorite British newspaper to source, but nonetheless, here it is from thesun.co.uk. First of all, Tommy Robinson is the founder of the English Defence League. Remember, defense is spelled the British way, so it's DEFENCE. The English Defence League. Drop a few bucks on the English Defence League today. If you really support Tommy Robinson, the court costs are going to be high. He needs all the support he can get, and I think it would mean a lot to the English Defence League to see American dollars come into their PayPal or their GoFundMe or whatever mechanism they're using to support Tommy. But this says, contempt defined. What is contempt of court, and why can you be jailed for it? Tommy Robinson was today jailed for contempt of court after publishing material that could prejudice an ongoing trial. Now, that's the surface story. That's the legal hook that they got in his mouth. But the real reason is because Khan, the mayor of London, wants to run his London stan, and he doesn't want any loudmouth, tough, brawny Englishman getting in his way. Now, that's my opinion, I added. In the UK, a person can be found in contempt of court if they willfully defy a court order. Okay, same as the US. According to the Crown Prosecution Service, The main types of the offense can be physically interfering in a trial, threatening witnesses, or obstructing justice. Showing disrespect to a judge can also be contempt of court. So basically, Joe, so far we're in American jurisprudence all the way. If someone is in contempt of the magistrate's court, a person can be imprisoned for 1 month or face a fine up to £2,500 sterling. But for those in contempt of a crown court, they can be jailed for up to 2 years or face a fine. In the UK, media can only report the facts of a case. In the US, contempt of court is generally not considered to be a criminal offense. Due to the First Amendment, the media outlet cannot be found in contempt of court. So that's, Joe, that's a key takeaway, right? Look, we need to use what's happening in these other countries as a looking glass to determine why we must stay in this fight 24/7, 365. Because whether it's the socialism, communism breakdown economically of Venezuela under the mustachioed bus driver, or whether it's this key difference that I just read to you, in the UK, media can only report the facts of a case. So they can be held in the media itself, like it would be like CNN being held in contempt of court. And yeah, you could argue maybe they should be, but in the U.S., contempt of court is generally not considered to be a criminal offense. Why? Due to the First Amendment, the media outlet cannot be found in contempt of court. Period. So the question I'll put out to all of our listeners: would Tommy Robinson be in jail today if that incident had happened on the steps of a court in New York or Pennsylvania or California?
Yeah, he would not be in jail. And it is unfortunate that, he apparently, I don't know what, I'm not that familiar with the laws of Europe and the EU and how they do things. I don't know if this can be overturned, appealed. I don't know the procedures here, but either way, there are people were protesting, and the information was up on Drudge Report today. Mass protests worldwide. It goes to the Zero Hedge article. Britain's rage over Robinson arrest at mass protests break out worldwide, and they showed different locations where protests broke out, from Downing Street in the UK to all over the place. Thousands of people, but the EU is not going to listen to the protests of the people. They could care less. They're probably just laughing at the people for wasting their time, even though they're doing it for a very worthy cause. I don't see it having any effect. And will he be safe in prison? Well, see, this is the thing. I don't think he will be. At the same time, I'm sure there will be a lot of people in there who will be looking out for him. Either way, it's a bad situation, and it directly goes to the freedom of speech issue. Obviously, the EU has been captured and is the model for the one world government, new world order tyrannical system. And this is what they're trying to do here, is to remove the constitutional rights. This is why you see so much talked about of false racism and hate speech, and there's such an outcry against it now in our, at least in the far left. The people who are calling for tolerance are the most intolerant people in the world, and they want to ban each and every one of our ability to speak freely, specifically about our faith and these issues of our freedoms and whatnot. So this is the model, and this is what they're going to do. So journalists, beware. This is what we're up against.
Please do me a favor, listeners. I try not to self-promote my Twitter feed too much, because I regard Twitter the same way the Hagmann Report regards YouTube. I every day that I open my Twitter account, I just give a little prayer of thanks to the Lord that I have my Twitter account for one more day. I've been in Twitter jail a couple times. I've been shadow banned a few times, blah, blah, blah. But if you want a one-stop shop for hashtag free Tommy, hashtag free Tommy Robinson, and you want to see stark evidence of the censorship from Jack Dorsey's Twitter, all you've got to do is go to @RobersonJon, @ROBBERSONJON. I have probably 10 or 15 tweets up since yesterday that are hashtag free Tommy or one of the derivatives thereof. And last time I checked this morning, hashtag free Tommy wasn't even trending on Twitter. And yet on my feed, there are barely any tweets that are not hashtag Free Tommy. Now I've got 7,500 followers, so that's a lot of people that are tweeting out some kind of tweet with the hashtag Free Tommy, and yet it is not trending on Twitter. Joe, two things I want to cover quickly. We've got a victory today, and we've also had a little bit of a smackdown.
Well, one more thing on Tommy Robinson, and I don't know if this is clear or not. This is speculation.
This is ridiculous, man.
He was outside a sentencing hearing. The trial was over. The verdict was decided. How does this interfere by reporting the result of a trial that is over? Now, see, that's a comment somebody wrote. I have to see if that's true, but that would add a whole new layer of deep state censorship and against Tommy Robinson for being an outspoken critic of Islam. And if it just was the sentencing, what's there left to influence? I don't understand. So yeah, we will follow up on that.
He is the founder of the English Defense Fund. In a situation like they're in right now, even seeing $5 American being pushed into their account, and I'm sure Americans are donating, but let's get behind our British brothers on this. We, for better or worse, we could parse through it through the ethocentric, history of our founding and all that. But we are basically more or less all from the UK, be it Ireland, Wales, England, etc. Of course, there's a lot of Germans that came over early and Swedes, etc. But basically, the 13 colonies were British, and we have fought against tyranny shoulder to shoulder twice with these people. And you know what, Joe? I would go over there and fight against tyranny with them again. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but it could happen again. Now, I said we've had a smackdown and we've had a victory. The smackdown today comes from Dan Bongino. This from YouTube. Quote, someone is attacking our channel. Please be sure to visit Bongino.com to listen to the latest episodes of the Dan Bongino Show. Thank you for your support, Dan. And that's a message that was up on YouTube approximately an hour ago. Now, the Dan Bongino Show, last time I looked at the metrics, was the number 4 most popular conservative podcast in the country, behind Joe Rogan, Steven Crowder, and I think InfoWars. But Dan Bongino has gone from a senatorial candidate in Maryland, who he almost won that election in 2016. If he had been in a more staunchly conservative state, he would be Senator Bongino. He's a good man, 20 plus years in the Secret Service. He is being censored on YouTube. It's right here in his own writing. Quote, someone is attacking our channel, end quote. Now then, we've also had a great victory today, and that goes to my very dear friend, really a friend of the show, Alicia Powell. Without getting into her personal life too much, Alicia Powell became a friend of the Hagmann Report a year and a half ago, as her work with WorldNet Daily, WND.com, came to our attention. And to one degree or another, we've all become friendly with her. Everybody at Team Hagmann likes Alicia. But she has been knocking around freelancing the last few months. And another friend of the Hagmann Report, Jim Hoft, the editor-in-chief and founder of the Gateway Pundit, apparently has offered Alicia Powell a job. And what better way to get started on day one of your job than to find yourself smack dab, Joe, in the middle of the Drudge Report? And that's exactly what Alicia – now, Alicia's landed on the Drudge Report before, but nonetheless, that's an incredible – honor. It's a victory, and we'll take them where we can get them. But our dear friend Alicia Powell lands on the Drudge Report, and the article, which I have here in front of me, from the Gateway Pundit.
Yeah, we were reading this. Eric texted us this article, and I know you made my dad aware of it earlier. I was looking at it at the house today, and it's very troubling. I want to say this is what she covers here is very important, because when we talk about this transgender movement, we know that transgenderism has been, much like homosexuality, in the psychiatrist's own manual, the DSM, for many years, ever since its inception, until homosexual was taken out in the 80s, I believe, 70s or 80s, and the transgendered was just changed recently. It's called gender dysmorphia. It's a mental illness, and these people are being empowered by the media, by society, to transition, even at childhood now. But this is the results of what happens when this is the mentality of the people who are doing these things.
That's exactly correct. And again, the gatewaypundit.com, written by Alicia Powell. This is just sad. This whole individual's life is just sad. Chelsea Manning, a.k.a. Bradley Manning, who is very fortunate not to be spending the rest of his life in a concrete box. Joe, we can discuss this if you want. I have very different feelings about Bradley Manning than I do about Julian Assange. I feel that Bradley Manning directly violated his oath that he took when he joined the Army. But anyway, Chelsea Manning tweeted a suicide note and a picture of herself standing on the edge of a tall building on Sunday night. Manning, a Democratic senatorial candidate, posted what appeared to be a suicide note on Twitter around 8:30 p.m. on Sunday. This again by Alicia Powell, writing for the Gateway Pundit. Chelsea tweeted, quote, "I'm sorry I tried. I'm sorry I let you all down. I'm not really cut out for this world. I tried adapting to this world out here, but I failed you. I couldn't do this anymore. I can take people I don't know hating me, but not my own friends. I tried, and I'm sorry about my failure," end quote. And that tweet is front and center in Alicia's article. Following her suicidal tweets, a tweet from her account later said that she is safe. The suicidal tweets were removed from her account. Joe, there's so many aspects to this story. Senatorial candidate Chelsea Manning, we talk about, we wonder about, we lay wagers on the blue wave. And here we've got a Democratic senatorial candidate about to take a 10-story plunge off a ledge. And my heart...
I wouldn't even call him a real candidate, honestly.
My heart goes out to Bradley Manning, a.k.a. Chelsea Manning. My heart goes out to Bruce Jenner. These people have been corrupted and deceived by the master deceiver, and what they need is help. But what are they getting instead? They're getting told that they're special and that they're okay, and even moreover, that they should be the leaders, that they should lead other people to find what they themselves have been brave enough to find. Now, here's an interesting little drop the mic and walk away for you, Joe. I was informed by our dear friend Honeybee over the weekend that David Hogg took a male date to the prom. So apparently David Hogg has come out as homosexual. Now, I don't have proof of this. I don't have a handwritten note from David Hogg. I don't have an affidavit in front of me. But Melissa Zachariah, a.k.a. the Honeybee, big YouTube channel, great following on Twitter, she informed me that there is a picture, perhaps you've seen it, Joe, of David Hogg and his date, who is not female.
Let's see. Okay, so what I'm looking at, the two of the biggest anti-gun critics, David Hogg and Cameron Kasky. Parkland's survivor's dad, David Hogg and Cameron Kasky, love each other. Hold on, let me. This is interesting, John.
This is some serious bromance.
Yeah, I'm glad you... Okay, the parents of the Parkland shooting survivor, David Hogg and Cameron Kasky, have denied they were going to prom together. Kasky posted a photo on April 23rd, prom 2018, with him hugging David Hogg. Okay, so yeah.
Did they wear matching bow ties?
So, along with bisexual activist Emma Gonzalez, the Parkland shooting survivors have been at the forefront of the Never Again movement, which is the anti-gun movement, so that all three of them are gay. Amazing. How interesting. What a coincidence.
There are no coincidences.
I don't have anything personal against people who are gay.
Yeah, I don't either.
But don't ask me to accept it, like it, and do not promote it to children. It's like promoting adultery. It's like promoting murder. It's like promoting theft.
Joe, let's get down to brass tacks here. We have a few minutes left. I'm going to put you on the spot. We have a lot of friends, a lot of friends around the show, and I know without question we have friends that you respect from A to Z, Z to A. Okay, but we also have certain friends who are vehemently banging the table with their shoe, like Khrushchev, about the homosexual lifestyle. And whenever, and I've been drawn into these discussions many times on air, but I come from a different background, Joe. I was brought up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I had working through theater in high school and restaurants and bars all through my 20s, and then the television and film industry all through my 30s and a couple years into my 40s. I've been around homosexuals pretty much my entire life, and I don't accept my bottom line with it is this: I don't want them to go to hell. Okay, it's that simple. Like, whatever you're doing, whether it's chronic alcoholism or sodomy or whatever, I don't want people to go to hell, brother.
Right.
But I also feel like some of our counterparts and colleagues find homosexuality to be perhaps a convenient bullseye, if that makes sense. Joe, what are if you're so willing, give us your gut feelings on the homosexual issue in the remnant Christian church today.
Absolutely. And my, what I just said before, that I have nothing personally against somebody who is homosexual. I will not, hold that against them, or not talk to them or associate them with them or treat them any differently because of that. But I look at homosexuality as a sinful behavior. And if you practice that sinful behavior, which we all practice sinful behavior in one extent or the other, and we try to mitigate that as much as possible. But I don't, I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to tell you that everything's going to be okay. I'm not going to, bother you or, proselytize to you constantly about it. But at the same time, don't ask me to be okay with it. Don't ask me to accept it. Don't ask me to, change the laws of marriage that were established by God to be between a man and a woman. Don't ask me to, institute a homosexual anything. Don't corrupt what we are told in the Bible. We're not to be corrupting and becoming a wicked society. And we read about Sodom and Gomorrah and the practices there where, men laid with men, and it was, very like kind of what you'd read out of a 1960 Woodstock type atmosphere. And that's what our society is turning into. And it's not just, the homosexuality is one example. I'd say the transgenderism is far worse, because what they're doing is they're messing up, they're promoting it to children, and they're messing them up for life. And it's right there with the homosexual agenda. What has happened is we've had God removed from our society. We've had it removed from our schools, from our courthouses. Then we saw these other evils increase, like abortions. And now, wickedness is now trendy. Hating God and people who believe in God is now acceptable. And sin is promoted, and it continues to grow. And as that sin grows, the power of evil grows. Hence why we see those manifestations like school shootings and terrorist attacks and all these other examples of things going crazy because wickedness is abundant, and that does manifest. It gives it more power. It gives that evil more power. So anything that feeds into that evil, I'm going to be against. But again, that's we're all sinners. So.
We are all sinners. Joe, I read an article yesterday about four pretty well-known porn stars who have died mysteriously in the last 3 months. And it was sad. Like, one of these young ladies was very beautiful. Like, she could have walked into any room in any city and anywhere in the world and just turned heads. She was beautiful. Now, she chose to get into porn. I don't know why, but she hung herself in Vegas. There are 3 others who have died of suspicious deaths in the past 3 months. Now, this article didn't go as far as to say that there's a conspiracy going on, or that somebody's doing some quote-unquote house cleaning in the adult film industry. But, we started off this program, and I'd like to conclude it this way as well, Joe. You and I are on a mission. We have a rebranding of the show coming up. In fact, we're in our last 6 weeks of the Hagmann Daily Show now. We've got great content planned for those 6 weeks. But we're rebranding this program. It's going to be more conversant. It's going to be more interactive. And it's frankly just going to be a lot more fun. It's going to give less doom and gloom news and more food for thought, more stuff that you can talk about in the car with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, kids, etc. And in as much as that's what we are aiming for, Joe, I'd like you to take us out today and comment a little bit more on how important it is to decompress. You've been spending time doing yard work with your dad. Oh, I got to say something funny real quick too. When I went over and ate the steak with Doug and Renee the other day, Doug, get this, listeners, Doug Hagmann in a camouflage bucket hat that says Dunkin' Donuts on it. You can't beat it. You got to love it. And he wasn't wearing a tie. Sorry, Doug. But Joe, take us out today with it sounds like you found some peace the last 3 or 4 days with the telescope, and you've been doing some writing and so forth.
It's just,
give our listeners a little something pleasant to go out with today.
Well, I don't know that I have anything pleasant, but, taking time taking time away from, the daily grind of life, and having that extra day and being able to do some reflecting and get a lot done. There is a lot of things to be thankful for. There's a lot of things that reasons we should be and are blessed and be thankful for that. But we should also be vigilant. And, in doing some of the research I was doing over the weekend, one of the things that I started writing about was Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And I'm not going to give too much away about what I wrote, but many people overlook this Bible verse and what the implications are as far as when we look at the battle we are up against, and how do we traditionally fight battles, and how is that different from the battle we are fighting, which is the spiritual battle. And that's all I'll say with that. But I have several pages I've wrote about that, written about, and it's very interesting, and it's reason for to be sober and vigilant, but it's also a reason to understand, to get a better understanding of some of these things. Gives you I don't want to say a greater sense of faith, but the understanding brings some kind of spiritual, I don't even know how to say it, component with it, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to keep digging away and trying to write as much as possible, but there is no shortage of things we can learn and understand, and we just have to apply ourselves. And I think that if we do that and give it an honest effort, that's all anybody can ask of us. We can say we did our part, we did our job. I wouldn't want to leave the show without mentioning our sponsor. I hope people took advantage of the Simply Clean Foods deals that they had up until midnight last night. And if not, I don't know. I'm sure Chance is going to have some special. Again, we will bring him on at some point this week. But go to simplycleanfoods.net. All your survival storable foods, GMO free. It's Christian owned, veteran owned, and it is a great product. They have storable foods and all kinds of supplies for survival needs. And the foods are fruits and vegetables and meats that are good for 20 years, and they're not processed. Again, they're GMO free, very healthy for you. And what we're talking about today, living in a convenient society versus the self-sustainable model. And if society broke down, how many of us would be self-sustainable? Well, having a supply of storable food is a good start to getting on the right track, or will at least keep some food in your belly while we figure out how to be self-sustainable. And that is pretty much priceless if you find yourself in one of those situations. So take advantage of that. Simplycleanfoods.net, simplycleanfoods.net, promo code simplyclean there. So and we will bring Chance on. I know he's got a few programs that he put together that he wants to talk about with helping the Adopt a Vet program and some other things he's doing. So we're going to get updates on that, as well as any other specials he has. So
real quick, Joe, take a look at the news over the weekend. There was a overroad truckers protest in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The tractor trailers literally stopped rolling. And it was in protest of exorbitant diesel prices as we see the price of oil climb across the globe. It doesn't take a natural disaster, civil unrest, riots, earthquakes, etc. to clean out those grocery store shelves. All it takes is a 2-day strike from the overroad truckers. Again, it happened in Brazil. It can happen here.
Amen. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day.
The Hagmann Daily Show is brought to you by the Hagmann Report. Tune in to the Hagmann Report weekdays, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to HagmannReport.com. That's HagmannReport.com.